Rigdzin Nyingpo is a really important Lama. Still nowadays, his influence is very much felt, particularly in Kagyu and Nyingma schools. He was born about 1565 in southern Tibet, in the region of Khampo. And he's famous for some of the teachings he revealed, tantric teachings he revealed, which belong to a class of teachings known as treasures, or in Tibetan, te. So, and at the same time, his life history is full of enough drama and pathos and struggle to make him a really poignant example for us to follow. That you know what leads to somebody achieving such greatness in life. So I'll say a little bit about his biography then. Like I say, he was born in 1565, and his family were not particularly wealthy. And in fact, as a child, there was a kind of conflict between his wishes and those of his parents. He seems to have been naturally religiously inclined, which of course means Dharma in Tibet, to practice and study the Dharma. But his parents were not particularly so. I mean, they were Buddhists, of course, but they wanted other things for him. They particularly wanted to become a doctor, to train as a doctor, and he did spend quite a lot of time as a child and teenager studying medicine. But his heart was not truly in it, he says himself. He said himself later. And he was associated, throughout his life, he was associated with both the Kagyu and Nyingma schools. So as a child, he did manage to acquire some teachings from Gampopa, from the great Gampopa. So he mainly studied the jewel ornament of liberation and the jewel rosary of liberation, which Gampopa had composed some 4 centuries earlier, and which are kind of foundation texts of the Kagyu school, which meant later on, by the way, people often thought of him as some kind of emanation of Gampopa. And at the same time, also, Jatsun Nyingpo was very inspired by the so-called 5 royal sutras, like the King of Aspirations activity, the Heart Sutra, and so he liked to recite them. But still, it was a long time before he was able to really go for proper religious Dharma training in a monastery. And when he did, he entered a monastery of the Drukpa Kagyu tradition, which was quite strong very strong in southern Tibet. His main master there was a Lama called Mipam Tashi Wompo. The master ordained was called Yame Latsawa. So he's a monk by this time, and which is going to be significant because around about the age of 30, he kind of discovered his, if you like, his visionary vocation to be one of those masters who had been predicted by Padmasambhava in the late 8th century, who would reveal these mysteriously concealed treasure teachings emanating from Guru Rinpoche's own mind, from his own teachings. And so at the age of 30 in Khampo, Rigdzin Jatsun Nyingpo discovered the physical artifacts of this teaching known in Tibetan as Kunchit Chindu, which means the union of the jewels. And that's remarkable because he was a monk, you see, and almost all the treasure revealers that have appeared in Tibetan history to reveal these teachings of the Guru Rinpoche, which are therefore very prized in the Nyingma, the ancient tradition, take consorts. Rigdzin Jatsun Nyingpo never took a consort. He was very, very devoted to his monastic vows and maintained them throughout life. But that was a difficulty and a struggle. So he discovered this treasure, but he didn't reveal it to other people. He didn't teach other people. He practiced it and so on and so forth. And in time, he would go on to discover quite a few, 6 volumes of treasures altogether. The Jatsun Nyingpo Pudruk is 6 volumes altogether, like another important treasure of concerning the practice of Hayagriva and Vajravarahi, and another one of the 100 peaceful and lawful deities. But his most famous one was Kunchit Chindu, because in that there's a system of practice which has both a nundro, preliminaries, then the practice of the Guru Padmasambhava as a Lama, as a Yidam and a Dakini, and then some very powerful completion stage yogas of the subtle body, and finally teachings on Dzogchen, Hatha Yoga itself, to realize the primordial purity of mind. So it's a complete cycle. The Kunja Chindos, you could just be a Kunja Chindu practitioner and nothing else all your life. But Jatsun Nyingpo had difficulties. One of his difficulties was the trouble caused by other monastics. He was in a Drugpa Kagyu monastery, and it seems that there was a lot of opposition to him, a lot of scorn to him from other monks, because, it's human nature. People are competitive, people are negative, and so he had quite a lot of difficulties in his monastic setting. And also quite a lot of people, when they did his treasure-revealing teachings were spread, a lot of criticism that they're fake and that they're bogus, because that's how Dharma history is. It's full of such things, like all human history. So he had a lot of difficulties, but gradually his reputation, his personal practice, because very devoted practitioner, very great monk, and great meditator. So gradually, that his reputation grew, and in fact, very important masters came to receive his teachings, and he was invited by important masters to give his teaching to them, such as the 10th Karmapa and the Shama Rinpoche and the head of the Drugpa tradition. They all became his disciples and received the Kunja Chindu teaching, as did, of course, obviously Nyingmapas, because the treasure teaching is represents the most vital spiritual force in the Nyingma cycle. So, like the great Lama Seri Nasat Rangrol and the great master Rigdzin Dudul Georgi from the Nyingma monastery in Kham called Kato, who became one of his main lineage holders. And in fact, also eventually so many disciples came to Jatsun Nyingpo, which he was not entirely happy about, because he wanted to be a hermit, actually, not to just practice. But many disciples came, so finally he founded a monastery for them in Bangri, in Kompo, the place of Bangri in Kompo. And yet it's still in his biography, you can see he's saying there's too many people and it's so difficult to look after monks and nuns. They cause so much trouble, so much food, so many bad behaviors. I wish I could just go back to a cave or just escape from this. So he's continually trying to escape from all these kind of worldly burdens. But he never was really able to. And so really his influence, both for his own spiritual kind of charisma and from his teachings, was really enormous. So Kunja Chindu, the Kunja Chindu cycle, is still one of the most important. Actually, I should mention another one that is not a treasure revelation, but he actually elaborated a series of Guru Yoga practices based on Gampopa, which became part of the Karma Kagyu syllabus. The outer inner secret practices of Gampopa came from Jatsun Nyingpo himself. But nevertheless, the most important cycle of teaching he gave was Kunja Chindu. And finally, that both Karma Kagyu and Drugpa Kagyu, alongside Nyingma followers, made this one of their key practices. In fact, in some points, it almost looked like Kunja Chindu would become its own separate sect, known as the Kunja Chindu cycle of practice, particularly in the Himalayan regions. So right down to today, Kunja Chindu is very, very important. And Kamatin Rinpoche himself received it from his lamas like Lama Jigje Rinpoche and Kala Rinpoche, and then I, of course, received it from him. And so we spread it to some extent in our Dharma community. Yeah, so that's Rigdzin Jatsun Nyingpo. His name is Rainbow Essence, which is why when he's painted on a tanka, he's painted in a monk in monastic style, which he was, but also with these rainbow wings. It doesn't mean physically he had rainbow wings, of course, but just because to reflect his name.